Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading Book 12, so let's get into it. Book 12, The Singing Sirens and the Terrors of Scylla and Charybdis. Our ship left the stream of Oceanos and passed into the open sea. Soon it came to the island of Aea, where Dawn has her dwelling and her dancing lawns, and Helios his place of rising. We ran up the ship and went ashore to sleep on the beach. As soon as the next day dawned, I sent my companions to Circe's house to bring the body of Elpenor. We cut chunks of wood for a pyre and buried him on the end of the foreland, mourning for our dear friend. And when the body was burnt with his arms, we raised a barrow with a large stone upon it, and set up his own oar on the summit. While we were busy there, Circe did not fail to learn that we had come back from Hades. She soon came down well provided. The servants brought a load of bread and meat and sparkling red wine. Then standing among us, she said, "You men stick at nothing. So you went down to Hades alive. Double dyers. Then, when other people are content to die once. Come now, eat and drink once more. All the day is before you, and tomorrow at dawn you shall sail. I will describe the way. I will tell you every single thing, that you may not make mischief for yourselves and come to grief by land or sea." We were quite ready to comply, so all the day long till sunset we enjoyed our feast of good things. When the sun set and darkness came, they all lay down where the ship was moored, but Circe took me apart and made me tell the story of our voyage as we sat together. I told her everything just as it happened, and at the end she said, "Very well. All that is finished and done with. Now listen to what I have to say, and you will not forget it, please God. For you will come to the Sirens, who bewitch everyone who comes near them. If any man draws near in his innocence and listens to their voice, he never sees home again. Never again will wife and little children run to greet him with joy. But the Sirens bewitch him with their melodious song. There in a meadow they sit, and all round is a great heap of bones, mouldering bodies and withering skins. Go on past that place, and do not let the men hear. You must knead a good lump of wax and plug their ears with pellets. If you wish to hear them yourself, make the men tie up your hands and feet and fasten your body tight to the mast, and then you can enjoy the song as much as you like. Tell them that if you shout out and command them to let you loose, they must tie you tighter with a few more ropes. When you have got clear of them, there is a choice of two courses, and I will not lay down for you which to take. Use your own judgment. I will just say what they are. One course will bring you to a pair of precipitous rocks, washed by the boisterous breakers of dark-eyed amphitrite. The gods call them the moving rocks. Not a bird can pass between them, not even the timorous doves which carry the ambrosia to Father Zeus. One of these is always caught between the towering rocks, and the father sends in another to keep the number right. No ship sailed by men that came that way has ever escaped, but timbers and dead bodies are all carried away by the rolling seas and tempests of blazing fire. Only one ship ever sailed through, the well-known Argo. On her voyage to Aetus, and she also would have been wrecked on the rocks, but Hera took her safely through because Jason was her friend. The other course leads between two cliffs. One drives a sharp peak high into the heavens, and black clouds are round about it. The clouds never disperse, and that peak is never clear either in summer or in autumn. No mortal man could climb up, no man climb down, not if he had 20 hands and 20 feet. For the stone is smooth as if it had been polished, but in the side of the cliff is a dark, gloomy cave, facing the west towards Erebus, just where you will steer your ship. There Scylla dwells, and yelps in her dreadful way. The cave is so high that the strongest man could not reach it with an arrow shot from the ship. It is true her voice is no louder than a puppy dog newborn, but she is a horrible monster. Such a sight could give pleasure to no one, not even one of the immortal gods. She has 12 flapping feet and 6 necks enormously long, and at the end of each neck a horrible head with 3 rows of teeth set thick and close, full of black death. She is hidden in the cave as far as the waist, but she pokes out her heads from the gloomy depths, and there she fishes, hunting all round for dolphins and swordfish or any of those leviathans of the deep which Amphitrite breeds in thousands. No seaman can boast that they have escaped scot-free from her. She grabs a poor wretch with each head out of the ship as it sails along. The other cliff is lower, as you will see, Odysseus. They are not far from one another. You could shoot an arrow across. There is a wild fig tree growing from it, a tall tree covered with leaves, and Charybdis underneath swallows down the black water. 3 times a day she spouts it out. 3 times a day she swallows it down. She is a terror. Don't you be there when she swallows. No one could save you from destruction, not Earthshaker himself. You had much better go by Scylla's rock. Keep close and be quick about it. To lose 6 of your crew is much better than to lose them all at once. I answered, What do you say to this, my goddess? Suppose I slip away from Charybdis and show fight when the other attacks my men. She answered at once, You hothead! Fighting and asking for trouble is all you care about. Will you stand up even to the immortal gods? She is no mortal, I tell you, but an immortal fiend, dangerous, deadly, savage, invincible. There is no help for it. Flight is better than fight. If you stay too long near the rock while you put on your armor, I am afraid she may shoot out another 6 heads and catch another 6 fellows. No. Row as hard as you can and call for help on Charybdis. That is Scylla's mother. She produced that abomination. Charybdis will stop her from trying again. You will come next to the island of Thrinacia, where the herds of Helios feed. There are his cattle and great sheep, 7 herds of cattle and 7 fine flocks of sheep, 50 in each. These never have young, and never die. Their shepherds are 2 goddesses, nymphs with lovely hair, shining Phaethusa and bright Limpeti, daughters of Helios Hyperion by divine Neaera, ever young. When the mother had brought up her children, she sent them away to the far-off island to look after their father's cattle and sheep. If you leave these unharmed and attend to the business of getting home, you may yet reach Ithaca, although not without suffering. But if you do any damage, then I foretell destruction for ship and men. You may save your own life, but if you do, you will reach your home late and miserable, and all your companions will be lost. As she said these words, the dawn rose enthroned in gold. Circe, went away up the island, and I to the ship, where I awakened my companions, and bade them embark and cast off the moorings. They were soon on board and in their places. Circe, our beautiful goddess, who could speak to us men in our own language, sent us the best of companions, a fair wind to fill our sails. All was snug and ship-shape. We sat still and let the wind carry us on while the steersman kept the course. I was anxious enough, of course, and so I spoke to the men. My friends, the divine Circe has told me all about what is going to happen, and I do not think it right that only one or two should know. So I will tell you all, and when we all know, we may die or escape, as the case may be. First, she bids us keep away from the Sirens with their wonderful voices and their flowery meadow. I alone must hear them, so she said. But you are to bind me with strong ropes and fasten me upright against the mast, so that I shall not be able to move. If I implore you and order you to set me free, you must tie me up tighter than ever. So I explained everything to my companions. And by this time the ship was drawing near the Sirens' Isle, traveling briskly, for there was no fault to be found with the wind. Then the wind fell all at once, and there was a dead calm, not a ripple on the water. My men rolled up the sail and stowed it below, and they were soon rowing away. White foam and splashing oars. Then I took a thick round of wax and chopped it up with my sword into pellets, and molded the bits in my fingers. The wax grew soft as it was warmed by the effulgence of my lord Helios Hyperiondes. And I plugged up the ears of all the men one after another. Then they bound me hand and foot and fastened me upright against the mast, took their places and paddled on. But when she was as far off the island as a voice could carry, and going at a good pace, the Sirens saw us coming and raised their melodious song. Come this way, most admirable Odysseus, glory of the nation. Stay your ship and listen to our voice. No man ever yet sailed past this place without first listening to the voice which sounds from our lips sweet as honey. No, he has a great treat and goes home a wiser man, for we know all that the Argives and Trojans endured on the plains before Troy by the will of heaven, and we know all that shall come to pass on the face of Mother Earth. So they sang in lovely tones. From the bottom of my heart I longed to listen, and I ordered the men to set me free, nodding my head and working my brows. But they simply went on pulling with a good swing. Perimedes and Eurylochus at once got up, and put more ropes round me, and fastened me tighter. But when we had gone a long way past the Sirens, so that we could hear them no longer, my companions took out the wax from their ears and untied my ropes. At last we left the island behind, and suddenly I saw smoke, and a great rolling wave, and heard a loud noise. The men were terrified. The oars flew out of their hands and fell in the sea with a splash, dragging down at the ship's sides by their loops. She made no way. Now the oars drove no longer. I walked down the whole length of the ship, pausing by each man, and coaxing them not to lose heart. My friends, we are not unacquainted with trouble. This is no greater danger than when the Cyclops imprisoned us in his cave by brute force. We escaped from that place, thanks to my courage and my ingenious plan, and I think we shall live to remember this no less. Now then, attend to my instructions. Keep your seats and row away like men, and then we may hope that Zeus will save and deliver us out of this danger. Now for you, steersman, pay careful heed. For you hold our helm in your hands. Keep her well away from the smoke and surge, and hug the cliffs. Whatever you do, don't let her run off in that direction, or we shall be all be drowned." They did my bidding at once, but I took care not to mention Scylla and the peril we could not avoid. I thought they would be likely to leave the oars in a panic and huddle down below. At that moment, I quite forgot Circe's injunction. When she told me not to arm myself, I put on my armor and caught up a couple of spears and took my stand on the foredeck, for that was where I thought Scylla would show herself on the rock, bringing death for my companions. But I could not see her anywhere, though I dazed my eyes with staring out about me through the clouds at the rock. We passed up the strait, groaning loudly, for on one side was Scylla, on the other Charybdis, swallowed up the salt water in terrible fashion. When she spouted, like a cauldron over a great fire, she seethed up in a swirling mess, and the spray rose high in the air till it fell on the tops of the two cliffs. When she swallowed up the salt sea, she showed deep down in her swirling whirlpool black sand at the bottom, and the rocks all around echoed a bellowing boom. Every man was pale with fear. As we gazed in our fear at the death on this side, at the same moment Scylla grabbed 6 of my men out of the ship, the best and strongest of the crew. I turned, took a glance at the ship, looked for my men, saw their hands and feet already in the air, swinging aloft in the clutches of Scylla. While they called aloud on my name, for the last time in despair, as a fisherman stands on a projecting rock with a long rod and throws in ground bait to attract the little fishes, then drops in hook and line with the horn bait, and at last gets a bite and whips him out gasping. So Scylla swung them, gasping up to the rock. There in the cave she devoured them, shrieking and stretching out their hands to me in the death struggle. That was the most pitiable sight of my eyes ever beheld in all my toils and troubles on the weary ways of the sea. When we were past the rocks and away from the terrors of Charybdis and Scylla, immediately we reached a delectable island in that place were the fine cattle with broad brows and the great sheep which belonged to Helios Hyperion. While we were still a long way off, I heard the lowing of the cattle, penned for the night, and the bleating of sheep. And I remembered the warning of the blind prophet, Theban Tiresias, and of Ian Circe, and how they strictly forbade me to land on the island of Helios, the joy of man. At once I said to my companions, with my mind full of foreboding, "Men, you are having a hard time of it. I know that, but listen to me a moment. I want to tell you a warning of Tiresias, and of Circe also. They strictly forbade us to land on the island of Helios, for there, they said, an awful danger awaits us. You had better give the island a wide berth and row on." This fairly broke them down, and Eurylochus answered at once angrily, "You are a hard man, Odysseus, never downhearted and never tired. You must be made of iron. Here are your men, tired to death and scarce able to keep awake, and you won't let us go ashore on this island and cook a square meal. No, you make us go traipsing along the whole blessed night. We must give the island a wide berth and toss about in the dark? Night is the time for dangerous squalls. That's the way ships are lost. How can we expect to get off with our lives if a sudden squall comes out of the south or west? Damned bad winds that send a ship to the bottom, God willing or not. I vote we take our orders from Black Madam Night, pull up the vessel and cook a meal. Then, in the morning, in we get, and it's over the sea we go. That was the proposal of Eurylochus, and the others applauded. Then I understood that heaven had trouble in store for us, and I gave it him straight. Eurylochus, I must give way to force. I am one against many, but you must swear a solemn oath that if we find a herd of cattle or a flock of sheep, no one shall dare to kill one cow or one sheep. You must keep quiet and eat the food that Circe gave us. They all swore the oath accordingly, and when that business was done, we brought the ship into a landlocked harbor close to a spring of sweet water. They all went ashore and prepared their meal in proper style. When they had taken all they wanted, they had time to remember their lost comrades whom Scylla had caught and eaten out of the ship. And they lamented their dead until welcome sleep overcame them. But when it was the third watch of the night, and the stars had moved south, Zeus, cloud-gatherer, sent out a furious wind and a regular tempest, and covered earth and sea with clouds. Night rushed down from the heavens. As soon as the dawn showed ruddy through the mist, we hauled the ship ashore into a cave, in which the nymphs had their thrones and dancing rings. Then I called the men together and addressed them. My friends, we have food and drink in the ship, so we must keep our hands off these cattle, or we may suffer for it. For an awful god is the owner of these cattle and great sheep, Helios, who sees all and hears all. They were quite willing to agree, but the south wind blew for a whole month without changing, and after that, never a breath of any wind we had but east and south. So long as the food and red wine lasted, they kept their hands off the cattle, for they did not want to die. But when all the provisions on board were consumed, and they had to go about hunting for game, birds or fish, or whatever fell to their hands or their hooks, and they were half starved, I made my way up into the island to offer prayer to the gods and try whether one would help us. I slipped away from the men and found a place with shelter from the wind. There I washed my hands and prayed to all the gods who dwell in Olympus, but they made me fall into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Eurylochus was making a fatal speech to his companions. My friends, he said, you are in a bad way, but let me say a word to you. All deaths are hateful to miserable mortals, but the most pitiable death of all is to starve. Come along, let us drive off the best of these cattle and sacrifice them to the immortal gods who rule the broad heavens. If we ever return home to Ithaca, we will build a rich temple to Helios Hyperion and set up there many handsome offerings. But if the god is angry about his straight horns and wants to destroy our ship, and if the other gods agree, I choose rather to die once with a mouthful of salt water than to be slowly squeezed out in a desert island. The others applauded the speech. They wasted no time, but drove off the best of the cattle of Helios close by, for the fine beasts, with their wide foreheads and crumpled horns, used to graze not far off. The men stood round the cattle and prayed to the gods, but they had no barley meal to sprinkle upon their victims. So they used tender young oak leaves, which they picked from a tree. They had no wine to pour over the burnt offering, but they sprinkled water before they cooked the tripes. Then they chopped up the rest and put the pieces on spits. At that moment I awoke and came back to the seashore. As I came near to the ship, a sweetish odor of burning fat was diffused around me. I cried aloud in horror and prayed to the immortal gods. Father Zeus, and all ye blessed gods that live forever. You meant my ruin when ye made me fall into that cruel sleep. My men whom I left behind have committed a monstrous crime. A messenger took the news quickly to Helios Hyperion, Lampetai, in her flowing robe, and she told him we had slain his cattle. In great anger he called out to the immortals, Father Zeus, and all ye gods that live forever, punish those men of Odysseus Laertes. They have brutally killed my cattle, which were my great delight when I climbed into the starry sky, and when I turned back to earth from heaven. If they do not pay me a fitting compensation, I will just go down to Hades and show my light among the dead. Zeus, Cloud Gatherer, answered him, Now then, Helios, you just go on showing your light to us immortals, and to mortal men upon Mother Earth. I will soon strike the ship with a thunderbolt, and smash it to smithereens in the middle of the sea. I was told this later by Calypso. She said she heard it herself from Hermes, king's messenger. As soon as I came down to the seashore, I reapproached them one and all, though we could do nothing to help it now. The cattle were already dead. But awful portents were seen in that place. The skins crawled, the meat bellowed on the spits, both raw and roast. It was like the noise of cattle. 6 days my companions feasted on the best of the cattle of Helios, but when the 7th day came, the furious tempest ceased. We embarked and went sailing away over the sea. When the island was far astern and no other land to be seen, nothing but sea and sky, Cronion brought a black cloud over our ship and darkened the deep. Then she did not run long, for suddenly came the west wind, screeching and blowing with a furious tempest. The gale broke both the forestays. The mast fell aft, and all the tackle tumbled into the hold. The mast hit the steersman's head and crushed the skull to splinters. He took a header from his deck and was drowned. Zeus at the same time thundered and struck our ship with his bolt. She shivered in all her timbers at the blow, and the place was full of sulphur. The men were cast out. There they were bobbing up and down on the waves like so many crows. So God ended the homeward voyage for them. I kept pacing up and down the ship until the sea tore the sides from the keel. A rolling wave carried her along dismantled and snapped off the mast close to the keel, but the backstay had fallen upon it. This was made of stout oxhide, so I used it to lash together keel and mast, and I rode upon these drifting before those terrible winds. Now the furious tempest of the west wind was lulled, and the south quickly followed, bringing anxiety for me, for it was sure to carry me back again to the terrors of Charybdis. All night long I drifted, and by sunrise Scylla and dreadful Charybdis were before me. Charybdis swallowed up the salt water, but I had been carried high up and caught the wild fig tree, and I stuck to it like a bat and held tight. I had nothing to plant my feet upon for support, and no way to climb, for the roots were far below, and the branches far above, those thick, long branches which overshadowed Charybdis. But I held tight without slacking until my mast and keel should be spouted up again. How I longed for them! And they came at last, at the time when a judge gets up from court for his dinner, after settling the morning's disputes among quarrelsome young men. Just at that time my spars appeared out of Charybdis. I spread out hands and feet and let go, and came down plump in the water alongside the spars, and then clambered up and lay on them, pedaling with my hands. What of Scylla? The father of gods and men would not allow her to set eyes on me, or I should not have escaped with my life. From that place I drifted for 9 days, and on the 10th at night the gods brought me to the island of Ogygia. There dwells Calypso, that goddess so beautiful and so terrible, who can speak the language of man. And she loved me and cared for me. But why go on with my story? I have told it already, and no one cares for a twice-told tale. That's it for Book 12. We'll see you guys next week with Book 13.